folks. Welcome to Gun Owners Radio, FM 96.1, AM 1170.
The Answer.
Hey, are you tired of paying hidden fees for heating and cooling services? Well, look no further than Straight Shooter Heating and Cooling. This may not be the time of the year. Ha! I was only kidding. Everybody's melting. So give Straight Shooter a call, because they do understand the importance of quality, dependability. That's why they offer a 1-hour appointment window. No diagnostic fee, no dispatch fees, just straight up, honest service you can trust. Call Straight Shooter Heating and Air Cooling today, 619-922-3937, for your $17.76 AC tune-up. No bull, just cool. Or book online at straightshooter.ac. That's straightshooter.ac.
Yeah, big thanks to the Straight Shooter Heating and Cooling guys. They were at the monthly meetings last week.
That's
by
right.
The way.
They fixed the AC on your Jeep?
No, they didn't. It's still being
looked at.
Still being looked at.
It's very diagnosed.
It's very complex. Very complex.
Yeah,
you wouldn't understand.
It's a Jeep.
You know. But yeah, call these guys, 619-922-3937, and ask them for that 1776 HC tune-up deal. Like I said, no air conditioner dies in January.
Yeah, right.
That's not when they die. So
famous last words.
Jump on top of it.
So what's kicking?
Well, it's Happy Bruen Day.
Do something?
We're going to talk about that, believe it or not. We might actually bring, this when the Supreme Court talks about the Second Amendment, we will definitely bring that up on the radio show. But yes, and we're gonna talk about it. It's a very interesting thing, but it is Bruen Day. Did you know that? Happy Bruen Day.
Yeah, it is.
Firearms Policy Coalition pointed that out to me, that it's the anniversary of the Bruen decision.
It's a day to celebrate.
How did you celebrate? How did you celebrate Bruen Day?
I actually spent my day on the range.
Yeah, you did, didn't you?
Yeah.
How did that go?
What better fitting way? Actually, I believe you might have been out of town, Mike, when we started this, but we actually started talking a couple weeks back about a woman that I had been working with that had some struggles, and I actually worked with her again today.
This was the comeback.
Yeah, well, this was the second comeback. This was her third time.
Oh, it's your third time?
Yeah.
Well, you told us about the first, and you almost
Correct.
kind of didn't think she was coming back.
Wasn't so sure. She said she would, and she did. She showed. I will tell you, though, however, we and this is not unusual. Today was a really hard day for her. So she had a hard time. She struggled.
Still struggling.
You know what? I almost feel like we had a bit of a regression. And what's kind of funny is if you look at it like a microcosm, I kind of see this a lot with people on the range when they're shooting. You know what? They start off really well, right? First 5 rounds or so were actually pretty darn good. And next thing you know, the adrenaline kind of sets, and the next thing you know, they're kind of getting more tense and tight, and they start slapping the trigger.
Do they overthink it?
So they start thinking too much. Yeah. And so I think that we kind of sit down and we just had a talk about mindset, kind of did a little bit of a reset, and she still struggled, but she did it. She persevered. And, I kind of find myself having to do that on occasion, too. There's days where I'm just a little bit off on the range. Some days are good, some days are great.
Well, you're not always perfect.
Absolutely not.
Seems like you should be home on the range.
Absolutely.
Yeah, with all the cantaloupe.
What better way?
With all the cantaloupe.
I do like that. And honeydew.
With the cantaloupe?
Yeah, because they sing, too. It's healthy.
Well, that's cool that you're working with her and getting her somewhere.
Getting her there.
What's her goal?
Her goal is just to be comfortable,
to
be honest, I really working with so many people. I see how that's a real struggle for some people, and honestly, it was not something I would have given a whole lot of thought to. I didn't think that would be a thing. And it's not actually all that uncommon.
Do you think the blue hair had anything to do with it?
That's a really great question.
You didn't even think about that.
I did not even think about that.
Yeah. That's probably
maybe. It might
There's
have been
your
a bit of a
regression.
All right, so speaking of comfort and having a good time, Gun Prom.
Yeah.
Go to gunprom.com for tickets to Gun Prom. Gun Prom is coming up in October. We're selling individual tickets for $175, and that gets you a $100 chip so that you can play the games, because it is casino night. Casino night.
So there's no tables this time.
Well, no, there will be places to sit. There's
no buying a
Correct.
table.
Don't buy a table. Buy individual seats. There's also a sponsorship. If you'd like to reach out to the Second Amendment community, maybe you're running for office, maybe you're a business owner and you want to tap into the Second Amendment community, there is a sponsorship package that comes with 2 to 4 seats and gets you access to our speakeasy and all kinds of coverage for your business or whatever you'd like to promote. But basic tickets are $175, and you're right. There's no like sit-down dinner.
Right.
No, rubber chicken dinner.
Right. Cool.
It's all about having fun this year.
And you don't have to be a gambler to have fun.
No. Nope, you don't. Well, there's a lot of other stuff going on, too. I think, this is going to be a good time. So find a date, dress up a little bit, buy some tickets, and come have fun with us. And help us with the cause. There's so much going on. We're about to talk about a whole bunch of stuff, with the Second Amendment. I got to tell you, we are not out of the woods. There's so much work to be done. So help support the cause. Help us get the right people elected. It is election year, and, again, come have fun. So go to gunprom.com and buy your tickets today. So we had the monthly meetings, and it went really, really well. We had Jeff Fox and Denise Berrigan from Vista. They're running for city council, and that was in the North meeting, North County Shooting Center. And of course, we had the guys from Straight Shooter come and talk about their HVAC company, their air conditioning company. So it was a really good meeting. Elliot, of course, always does a great job. Elliot's the absolute best. He does a great job up there running the North County meeting. And let's see, Poway Weapons and Gear. We had a meeting there on Wednesday, which went really, really well. Brian Pepin, who's on the city council in Poway, came to kind of give a lay of the land and influence people to get involved and how important that is. And then we had Judy Fitzgerald talk about her candidacy for Escondido City Council. Have you met Judy yet?
I did. She was actually in the studio just a few weeks back.
Oh, that's right. She came. Yeah, that's right.
Somebody was on vacation.
I was off. Yeah, just screwing around, not paying attention. So yeah, Judy came and spoke to everybody. And then Kaylin Frank, who is running for re-election at Poway City Council. And man, I got to tell you, Kaylin's very, very impressive. She's a very impressive lady. She's an incumbent. She's running for re-election. And she understands the Second Amendment conceptually. She understands the role of government conceptually as good as any candidate I've ever spoken to, which is very, very cool.
That's important. That's a foundational understanding that you need to kind of steer your mindset and your decisions.
I think so. I've gotten to where I ask a lot of, people, I don't ask a whole lot of Second Amendment questions. That's kind of second level. First, I want to know, do they even understand civics? Right. Do they understand civics? Do they understand what they have to do to get elected? Because if they don't understand what they have to do to get elected, I'm just not interested. I don't want to tell a bunch of our members, hey, go help this person out, and they're not doing the things that it takes to get elected. Because I got to tell you, before San Diego County gun owners, there were a bunch of candidates, a bunch of people who were like, well, I'm going to run. Well, okay, that sounds great, but what do you bring to the table or whatever? And they were, I'm pro Second Amendment. Okay, that's great, but you have to actually get that. You have to get that message out. So you have to be competent. And so anyway, she was very impressive on all levels. So it was really fantastic. And then South County had the best pizza of all three, of course, at Labella's. And we had a really good time talking there. A couple of new members, and it was a really good time. So if you're not coming to the meetings, come to the meetings. They're a lot of fun. If you haven't been to a meeting in a while, got to come to the meetings. July we'll have, it'll be at North County Shooting Center, and then it'll be at Discount Gun Mart, and then it'll be at Labella's. So check the website, keep an eye on the emails. And then a listener came up and talked to me. I was having a sandwich. And a guy came up and asked me if I was Michael Schwartz, and I had to think about it. And I checked the name in my underwear, and I was Michael Schwartz. So I just wanted to shout out to Miles, man. Thanks for saying hi. I hope you're listening.
You buy you a sandwich?
No. I'd already eaten it. I was in the sandwich afterglow when he came up and said hello. But anyway, thanks so much. It was such a nice conversation. Seems like such a great dude. He's a member. He's a listener. And I just wanted to say hi and give you a shout out.
And so where was that spaghetti that you put on Facebook?
Sauce down in PB.
Oh, you made everybody think it was Denny's.
I didn't. I never said that.
You did. Everybody thought you were
Nobody
talking.
thought that. And
everybody thought my $25 actually worked.
No. That's sauce down in PB. It's so good. The spaghetti is so good.
Better than Denny's?
Way better.
What?
Well,
You hear
there
it,
is no spaghetti, Denny's spaghetti anymore.
Give me my $25. I tried to help you out.
You
All
did.
right.
And it was commendable.
I know.
We don't fight the battles because we know we will win.
That's
we
right.
fight the battles because it's the right thing to do.
All right. Hey, if you ever have legal matters that involve firearms, you need California's best firearms lawyer ever. That's John Dillon. John Dillon specializes in California gun laws. So put his number on your phone right now, 760-642-7150. That's John Dillon's California firearms lawyer, 760-642-7150. Put his number on your phone right now. Put that away. You're going to hurt yourself.
What is it?
It's a knife.
Oh,
Watch this thing.
easy.
No, watch this. It comes out.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, see?
That's not a nail file?
Of course it is.
What?
It's a nail
not
file.
A nail file.
It is in this state.
It is in this state. All right. So who's the host? Oh, that must be you.
Yeah, so there's a ton of stuff going on. Like I said, it was Bruen Day. And Bruen Day, of course, is the anniversary of the Supreme Court decision. And there was another Supreme Court decision that happened. But there is a bunch of stuff that has happened. But I wanted to start with something that we didn't really touch on. And I was doing a little reading on it and wanted to bring up a couple of details. Now, we're going to talk about Rahimi, which that decision just came out. And we'll touch a little bit more on the bump stocks and some of the other cases. But there is a case in California that had to do with felons being able to own firearms.
Yes.
I don't know if it's Durante or Durant. I don't know how to pronounce it. But basically, a guy got pulled over, and he had a bunch of non-violent felonies on his record. Well, a bunch. There was like two. They were like drug related, and he had a gun. And cops found it. And if you are a felon, you're not allowed to have a gun. You're prohibited. You're a prohibited person. So they went up through the system there, and believe it or not, but the courts actually cited. They said, "Hey, because of Bruen, we think that a nonviolent felon should be able to have a gun," which is big news. That's huge news, and I think personally I agree. I think that it should be a much higher bar, or at least a higher bar, maybe not a much higher bar, in order to take away your gun rights rather than just we don't like you. Because what is if you some drug charge, some nonviolent charge, what is that? Why are we safer if that person isn't allowed to exercise their Second Amendment rights? I think there are some arguments to be made, but in general, I think that the Second Amendment is too important to just take away, willy nilly like that. And I think it should be reevaluated. And it looks like it has been, but they were waiting on this Rahimi case. But here's the reason I bring this thing up. One of the reasons I was researching it is I started getting a lot of questions. Hey, what's going on? Who do I contribute? What's the next step, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I looked to see who was behind it. Was it Firearms Policy Coalition? Was it Second Amendment Foundation? Like, who brought this case? And this is what's fascinating about this case. It was brought by a public defender. A public defender. This guy couldn't afford an attorney.
So you got a public defender.
So you got a public defender, and this public defender said, well, we're taking this thing all the way.
Wow.
And the public defender actually said, well, I think that this is against the Second Amendment.
But didn't the Supreme Court knock it down?
Not the Supreme Court, but the California Superior Court.
Oh, Superior Court knocked it down.
No, they upheld. They said, yeah, we think that the Supreme Court would call this unconstitutional. But the interesting part of this is that it was a public defender.
Well, he's getting ready to go out on his own.
Could be. I mean, public defenders are typically not our friends.
No,
they're not in favor of the Second Amendment. They're the ones that are usually really
got to be
nailing
one or
people.
two that like it.
You'd think, but I don't know this guy or girl. I don't even know if it's a girl. But this public defender, a lot of them are. I don't know how to say this without this huge blanket statement that will insult everybody. Blah blah blah.
Oh,
but
you've done it before.
They're not in it for the money. Otherwise, they wouldn't be a public defender. You know,
Without a doubt.
they're not in it for the principle of like, you know, they're in it for the people. You know, they want to help people. You know, that's usually, you know, so they're not like these. They're not like these. They're not in it for like the principle of the Second Amendment or the Constitution or whatever. They're typically, you know, more like social workers. You know, they're more motivated by the human aspect. So for someone to talk to this guy and defend him and say, "Hey, we're going to take this thing all the way because your Second Amendment rights have been violated." This guy's girl's a public defender.
And you know who the first person that popped into my mind when you said this?
Who's that?
You ever see the movie My Cousin Vinny?
Yeah,
And the two kids had that one public defender.
right. That stuttered.
I don't know why.
Yeah,
I'm
getting better.
You got to admit that's the best. But I mean, that's the first thing you think of when you think of a public defender.
And it could be maybe this person is got out of law school and they said, "Hey, I'll cut my teeth at the public defender's office and then go out on my own and be a criminal defender." Maybe that's the case.
And you'll get better.
Yeah, but I thought that was really, 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 really fascinating.
I didn't know that was a public defender that did that. I was surprised.
Well, and I also think that, we talk a lot about changing culture. I think that too much when we, folks in our community, we're a little narrow-minded. We're a little like, well, just say Second Amendment. Just go into a courtroom, say Second Amendment, and the judge should get rid of every single law. That's all it's going to take. Yeah. And I think that it may be, we may be changing a culture. It may be that this public defender is, looking at this like, well, hey, this is just how it is now.
Yeah.
Maybe they're not a zealot. Maybe they aren't some, Second Amendment zealot that wants to make a difference in the world. Maybe he's just following what he thinks the law is now, which is exactly what the law is now.
Right.
Now, I don't know where this ends up now. I don't know like what the next step is. It was a little unclear to me when I was reading about it. And I got to tell you, there's one of the things. So we're going to talk about a couple of different lawsuits. We're going to be able to find out you can go online and find a half a dozen attorneys that'll tell you all the nuts and bolts. So I don't want to talk too much about the in the weeds stuff. I'd rather really talk a little bit more, conceptually. What does this mean? What's the interpretation?
Should have John call in.
Well, I want to do the opposite of what John calling in, right? I don't want to it doesn't, I don't want to know what
legalize it.
Yeah, I don't know what the menu is. I want to know how the food tastes to you and me, and you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I want to talk about that, but I think that's an angle. So what I'm saying is you can go hear attorneys all day long talk about this case from a nuts and bolts point of view, but I think there's a different perspective here, and that perspective is that these lawsuits, the things that we're doing, I'm just talking about San Diego County gun owners, but gun owners in general, when you're supporting different groups and they're bringing in these lawsuits and we're winning these lawsuits, we're actually changing things in a fundamental way. The Bruen case gave this public defender, who we don't know much about, I'm just making a bunch of theories about what his possible motivation could be. But this public defender gave this person a tool, whether or not they like guns, or the Second Amendment, gave this person a tool to go further with somebody that they're defending. And that's not a direct effect that people think about. Mm-hmm. That's people when you think about like supporting these organizations and, hey, we had this little win over here, but it didn't win everything. Mm-hmm. We had this one lawsuit, we had this one decision, but I still can't get we still have 11% coming in. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, there are like these side effects of these lawsuits that are pretty amazing, like a public defender taking a constitutional case as far as they did, that actually got a decision that, hey, this guy shouldn't have been taking his rights back.
You want to give credit to this public defender?
Yeah, what's I forget the name.
J. Matthew Wright, and he is the Assistant Federal Public Defender from Amarillo, Texas. Which is awesome. There you go.
And it's Texas.
It is.
It is Texas. So maybe, maybe it was, maybe that is a little bit more of an indicator that they're a pro-Second Amendment attorney if they're in Texas. I don't know. But
I don't know. So much of Texas is starting to kind of look a little bit more purple.
Texas is totally purple.
Totally purple.
There's no doubt. I don't understand this reputation that Texas has. Texas is very purple. If you look at Houston, if you look at, hell, Lyndon B. Johnson was a Democrat,
Yeah.
I don't understand why people think that Texas is
Not.
is this this Republican stronghold. Man, they're about an inch away from voting blue. In fact, if you look at strategically, if you look at what the National Democrat Party has done, they were actually attacking Florida for years and kept losing. Like, they thought they had a better chance of winning in Florida because you had a bunch of people from New York, you had a bunch of people from the East, Northeast that would move and retire to Florida. So they thought they had like this, inflow of Democrats and that they could take Florida. And they've decided that that's not worth it. They're going to go over to Texas and try to take over Texas. They have a better shot. Democrats have a better shot of winning in Texas than they do in Florida. In fact, I remember
Why would you say that?
Numbers, just numbers. I'm just looking at straight voters, what it looks like. I mean, all the cities in Texas are very, very blue. You look at guys like Beto. Remember, what's his name? Beto
O'Rourke?
Yeah. Dude's from Texas.
Yeah.
So,
but he's a great representation.
yeah. So
I like him.
But I just, it bothers me when people kind of get settled into this black and white mentality or red and blue mentality. Politics is so much more complicated.
I think you're also starting to realize that both sides are looking at what's going on and changing their mind. Instead, what's the old adage? I don't care who the guy is, I'm voting Democrat. I don't care who the guy is, I'm voting Republican. And I think that's starting to wane a little bit. Maybe because gas is $7 a gallon, or maybe it's because you can't afford to eat.
I don't know. I think that the way people vote is so much more complex than most people think.
And ever before. And I think, are you going to watch the debate this week?
No, I don't care about that. No. Why would I care about that?
It's going to be a comedy show.
It might be a comedy show.
Come on, you're going to miss a good comedy.
If I can throw my 10 cents for the debate
Please.
part, I just feel as if that people have already made up their minds on who they want to vote for. So this whole debate is going to be, honestly, a complete waste of time.
It's a comedy show.
Yeah. So
the only reason I won't watch it is if full custom garage is on.
Well, I don't know why anybody in California would care anything about the presidential race.
I think people are going to watch it because it's going to be a show.
I think you're right. It might be entertaining.
I don't think it has anything to do with
I
politics.
want to see if they're sitting or standing.
They have to stand.
I got to tell you,
They were trying to push the other way.
If you watch, and this is probably going to make some people all mad, and I'll get an email or two, but if you watch the Trump-Biden debate and you haven't made arrangements to volunteer for a city council race or a school board race, or if you don't even know who your city council race, who's running in it, or if you haven't helped Joel Anderson in the county or whatever, if you haven't done anything like that and you're going to sit there and watch the presidential race, I think you should be ashamed.
Then we'll take your TV away.
I think you should be ashamed.
I agree.
You can actually make a difference.
I agree.
You can actually make a difference in races that are in your backyard. And if you're sitting there watching the presidential race from California without helping in your backyard, I think you should be ashamed.
I agree. All right. You want to learn to fly?
Yes.
You need to get a pilot's license.
Oh.
And San Diego is the best place to get your airplane pilot's license because pilots can fly almost every day.
Well, let's do it.
Let's do it because San Diego Flight Training International is the best school to get your license. Give them a call at 858-569-1822 or just go to Learn to Fly with SDFTI. I just call them 858-569-1822.
So, okay, the big case, the Rahimi case. Now, this guy was not a good dude. The plaintiff, not a good guy. But that wasn't really the point of the lawsuit. The lawsuit wasn't about whether or not this guy was a good guy or not. It was about Second Amendment and when should someone lose their Second Amendment rights. And so there was a big, huge decision, which is amazing. It used to be that, we didn't get a Second Amendment decision out of the Supreme Court for decades. Mm-hmm. And then we got one in 2008 and we got one in 2010. And then we got one a couple years ago. Now it's like, we've had a couple, just this year, which I think is good. I think that they're fully fleshing out the Second Amendment, and it's going our way, which I think is a very good thing. But this case, Rahimi, I got to tell you, it was. I don't know if it was a mixed bag. I don't really. That was my first thought. Was, well, there's some good and some bad. But the reality is, it didn't actually change anything. So when the Bruen case came out, it said, hey, text, history, and tradition. If it's not in the text and there's no history of it, no tradition of doing it, then it's an unconstitutional law. And I've heard some folks comment that this Rahimi case decision changed some of Bruen, and frankly, it didn't. What do I mean by that? Well, one of the unusual aspects of this case is that there were so many decisions. There was a majority decision, but then there were there's only 9 justices, and there were 5 decisions. Everybody took a shot at kind of clarifying what they meant. And in a lot of ways, that is a bit of a blessing in that we now see exactly pretty much each justice's thinking and reasoning when it comes to the Second Amendment. So it didn't change anything in Bruen. What it did is it showed us how each justice was interpreting Bruen, what lens they were looking at the Bruen decision through. So in other words, whatever case was put in front of them, this didn't change a thing. It just showed us, hey, this is how I, Justice so-and-so, would have interpreted this case through Bruen. Does that make sense? Now, the only one, I got to tell you, Clarence Thomas was the only dissenting decision. And he basically restated Bruen. And his was crystal clear. And I think that there is a way to point out pluses and minuses here. One of the minuses is Clarence Thomas's decision in Bruen, and then his dissenting decision in Rahimi was very objective. It was very black and white. This is how it is. There wasn't a lot of room for interpretation. And I think that this decision, if we read what Justice Roberts wrote and Alito and some of the other justices, what we're seeing here is that there really is a lot more subjectivity to their interpretation of the Second Amendment. One very clear example of that is they said, hey, the tradition and history, people were saying, hey, if there wasn't a law that was exactly like this that existed in 1791, then it's going to be considered unconstitutional. Well, that's pretty black and white. But especially Roberts said, hey, it doesn't have to be a twin. It doesn't have to be an exact law. It just has to kind of be the spirit of the law. Well, where does that start and end? That's a whole new area of subjectivity. And it falls in line with a lot of what Roberts has written in the past, and a lot of what a lot of Supreme Court justices have said and done in the past. Whereas they're basically like, look, we don't write law, and they don't want to get in the way of the legislative branch. And I think that there was a big dose of that in this decision. I think that there's this group in the gun community. And I'm not saying I agree with them or disagree with them. They're basically, all gun laws are unconstitutional. That's over forever. There's no more of that. You can't say that anymore. You can say it, but it's just factually untrue. There's never going to be a time when that's going to be a reality. And there have even Clarence Thomas doesn't agree with you. So saying that is, at this point in 2024, after Heller, McDonald, Bruen, Rahimi, after the bump stock case, there just isn't. There's no accuracy to that. It may be someone's opinion, and you may wish that it were true, but there's never going to be a time when that's accurate or true. So there are some gun laws that are going to be considered constitutional. There is definitely a level of subjectivity to a lot of these gun laws. Now, I think that a lot of people are worried about gun violence restraining orders. They feel that gun violence restraining orders or red flag laws are now going to be considered constitutional. I still think there's a lot of room, particularly temporary gun violence restraining orders, because there's like no due process with temporary gun violence restraining orders. When they just go in and say, "Hey, I don't like this guy," and a judge signs off on it. I don't think Rahimi has done anything to protect a temporary gun violence restraining order. Mm-hmm. There's no indicator. Mm-hmm. I think the idea that a dangerous someone who's proven to be a dangerous criminal loses their gun rights, I think that Rahimi probably does protect that. I think that if somebody is a dangerous criminal, they're going to lose their gun rights. But the problem is they weren't clear enough on where that line is. So that, again, introduce the subjectivity. But I don't know. I still I think that there's going to be a lot of shuffling. I know there's going to be a lot of shuffling now. Every case that you can think of, the Miller case, the Duncan case, every case you can think of is kind of waiting for these decisions, especially the Rahimi decision. And I don't know. It's going to be super interesting. The job of the anti-gun attorney is to make this decision be as broad and meaningful as they possibly can. The job of the pro-Second Amendment attorney is to make this as narrow and meaningless as they possibly can, and so that's where the fight's going to be. But it was a comfortable couple years when it seemed like the gun, it seemed very objective. It seemed like gun laws were very black and white, and I thought that was a very comfortable couple of years. When there is this subjectivity, it feels like so much of the fight was taken out with Bruen, and now I think that there's a big dose of fight that was injected right back in. But you know what? You're not going to you cannot rely on the Supreme Court. You cannot rely on the courts. This goes right back to, okay, if there are some gun laws and there is some subjectivity and there is some wiggle room here, we have to work on getting the right people elected. Mm-hmm. Full stop. You're not just Clarence Thomas isn't going to swoop in.
Well, there's a possibility there may be two new judges next session.
What do you mean? What are you talking about?
Yeah, what have you. So there's a possibility.
Yeah. I get it. Whether you like Trump or not. By the way, I heard the funniest comment the other day. I was having lunch and these two dudes were talking about Trump, and one of them said, "I always vote for a Republican, but I'm voting for Trump this time."
Well, that's really not a. That's kind of an interesting comment.
It is, right? Because I think this guy understood that Trump is registered as a Republican.
Yeah.
I think that he was kind of tripping over his words, but making a statement that Trump isn't your typical Republican.
No, not even close.
And he was kind of saying, look, I always vote for these stodgy kind of run-of-the-mill, leftover, Reagan wannabe Republicans. And I'm not doing that this time. I'm voting for Trump. But the way it came out was,
Did you buy him lunch?
No. But but that's where I think the Rahimi thing is. And that's a perspective I haven't seen necessarily online. I mean, you can look up and see exactly what was said and what people, what case is going to do what now or whatever. But I think the idea that nothing has really changed, it's just that all their opinions have now been more clearly revealed, and that we have to work within that context. As attorneys are preparing their cases, they're going to go back and look and say, okay, this justice thinks this other justice thinks that, so they have to prepare to convince them on their turf, what case. But then the other thing is, I think that the one thing I've definitely not heard anyone say about Rahimi is the courts aren't going to save you. They're not going to save you. You have to get the right people elected. It has to start at school board, city council. It has to be the assembly and state senate, and then eventually Congress.
Exactly. If you want gear at an affordable price, check out Condor Outdoors. Whether you're a military professional, law enforcement officer, or simply an avid outdoorsman, Condor products are designed to be versatile, durable, and above all, reliable. So if you're looking for the best in tactical gear, look no further than Condor Outdoor. Use code GOR for a 15% discount off the website, condoroutdoors.com, condoroutdoor.com, and make sure you use that GOR code for a nice 15% discount.
All right, we're going to keep talking about elections and lawsuits and Second Amendment and all kinds of cool stuff, but I wanted to introduce my buddy Adam from USCCA. How's it going, man?
Good to be back, guys.
Yeah, thanks for coming in the studio.
Absolutely, anytime.
He just came in because he's got a new watch and he wanted to show it.
That's a good enough reason. If you're wondering how to get on the show, just send a picture of your watch to
discuss watches with
info.
Mike.
Yeah. So we're going to talk all about USCCA, and you got some exciting things coming up, but we're not going to do it immediately. I just wanted to introduce you so you'd be a part of the discussion.
Sounds good.
Have you read it all or taken a look at the Rahimi case or the bump stock decision or any of those?
A little bit.
Yeah.
I can't say I'm an expert, but just enough to glaze it over.
Any reaction? Anything in particular that stood out?
I mean, to me, the whole bump stock thing is pretty dumb to begin with, if I'm being totally honest.
So that's very plain spoken, But honestly, the bump stock, the actual product, I don't know a lot of gun owners that are fans.
I don't think. I mean, I've been doing this industry for a very long time. I don't know that I've ever even seen anybody use one, ever.
Yeah, or even like one, or is like a fan of one. I mean, there's nothing.
No.
It's not like they're evil or bad, but I just
they're almost kind of pointless.
It's kind of pointless, but the decision, the lawsuit, pretty important.
Yeah.
And it's funny to me that such a product
Yeah.
was, resulted in such an important decision.
Well, I mean, it start a lot of things. Wasn't a lot of misinformation about the whole thing to begin with from the other side, if you will?
I don't know. Vegas,
that whole situation. Didn't a lot of it come from some of the
Oh,
stuff
yeah.
with Vegas?
Well, that was the catalyst for sure.
Yeah.
Was there, but I mean, their whole concept was misinformation. They basically said, hey, it turns an AR into a machine gun.
Yeah.
Which is simply not true, which was the whole, that was the whole thing.
Right.
But Sotomayor's dissenting decision, we touched on this a little bit last week, but she all but guaranteed that we're going to get rid of assault weapons once they take a case into the Supreme Court, because they are going to use her words against her. Now she's still going to vote the wrong way. She's a hypocrite, and she frankly isn't knowledgeable enough to make any kind of decisions on guns or gun laws. I mean, she was a horrible writer. I don't understand. I just don't get it. I don't understand how she got to the position where she is. And it's kind of frustrating. But with all the great legal minds out there, and they appointed Sotomayor to the Supreme Court, I don't understand it. And you know what? If you disagree with me, go read her decision, and then tell me how genius she is, because it was silly. It may as well, have come with a crayons and a little coloring book, because it was really, really just absolutely ridiculous. But she slipped up and basically said, hey, yeah, you know what? These are commonly owned. These are commonly owned. Like, it takes a commonly owned AR, which is exactly the case we've been making ever since Heller, that these are commonly owned. That's one of the tests, and you can't ban it if it's commonly owned. And we have a Supreme Court justice who voted against Bruen. So great. Thank you for your interest in guns, Sotomayor. Appreciate it. Thanks for the assist, But anyway, there's another interesting, it's not exactly gun related, but it is Gavin Newsom related. He just had a lawsuit. There was a proposition that most Republicans backed, they were going to force a vote on every tax issue in California. So if they were going to raise taxes, they were going to you'd have to vote on it. And the governor, basically they put it in front of a judge, and the judge said, yeah, this will be too disruptive to the political process, and said, nope, you don't get, in the name of democracy, you don't get to vote on this.
Is that like when who was it that made that comment that the First Amendment hamstrings the government, and everybody's like, oh.
Yeah, you're like, that's the point.
Right.
But there's something I wanted to touch on, because a lot of gun folks, there's a little discussion on this, and even though it isn't directly gun related, we have this proposition process in California. So there's a way for us to get a something on the ballot, and then we could vote for it. We could, whatever that is, some law. If we get enough signatures, you can get it on the ballot, and then if it gets enough votes, then it becomes law. That's actually very unusual. California is one of the few states that has that. Most states, the only way to put a law in the books is the legislature. And I got to tell you, I think that California is a very unpopular opinion. And I'll tell you why it's an unpopular opinion, but California is far too close to a big D democracy. And one of the reasons is because we have this proposition, the ability to put, laws on the books, with 50% plus one vote. We've taken away the two-house system. The state senators, their districts are drawn up by population rather than area. We should have one state senator per county, just like we have two federal senators per state, no matter what the size is. But in 1968, a Supreme Court, I think a misinterpretation of a Supreme Court decision changed that. So now we just have two houses, but they're both drawn by population. So we really only have one house. So that is one of the ways that we're a big D democracy here in California. The other way is that with 50% plus one vote, we can put just about any law on the books, and I think that that's wrong. Now, the reason that Republicans like this, I think fundamentally, if you sat down with somebody who's right of center or Republican or conservative or whatever you want to call it, philosophically they would be against the proposition process. But we've had a lot of success with propositions because we're so overwhelmingly run by Democrats. Republicans have been able to get some very popular laws through, so they don't want to get rid of so they don't philosophy be damned. Philosophically, I don't care. I just want, what I want. Everybody's happy with their own brand of tyranny. But where I'm going with this is, I actually kind of agree with the judge. Mm-hmm. I don't agree that they should raise taxes. I don't agree that we should have more taxes, that the legislature should raise taxes, come up with more taxes, tax. I'm against taxes. But conceptually, I actually agree with the judge that it is disruptive. That isn't how a representative republic should behave. We should vote for people who make the decisions, and they should have to face the consequences of the decisions they make. If the Republicans were effective, they would take this decision and they would ram through so many different changes in how things are done. But they're not going to do that. They're not going to do that. And it does show how hypocritical the Democrats are. We love democracy. We think everyone should, have a vote, and one person, one vote. Unless it's something we don't want to do or unless it's something against what we are. But anyway, I thought that was super interesting. I wanted to comment on it. So, not exactly gun related, though. Anyway.
Sounded good, though.
Did it sound good, Dave?
Absolutely.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
That's what I'm here for.
Almost every word I used correctly. So.
Yes, you did. Just like I.
So anyway, the important point is here, though, let's just overall, with all these lawsuits, we just spent a bunch of time on lawsuits. We talked about bump stocks. We talked about Rahimi and gun violence restraining orders. We even talked about whether felons should or should not be able to own firearms. But really the point is here, the final point I want to make on all these lawsuits is, it's nice to be educated. Not a whole lot has actually changed for you in California. There's not a whole lot that you couldn't do last week that you could do this week, but things are going in the right direction. But if there's really nothing, unless you're a plaintiff or an attorney, there's nothing for you to do on lawsuits. Being up to date on every single lawsuit isn't activism. So please help get our folks elected. July 15th, San Diego County Gun Owners Board is meeting. And we're going to vote on endorsements, and then by August, we're going to have a couple, 3-4 dozen endorsed candidates. And that's where you can actually make a difference. There are some very important races, including Kevin Faulkner, who's running on the kind of north coastal here and parts of San Diego. He's running against Tara Lawson-Raymer. She is horrible for your gun rights. If you help get Kevin Faulkner in, so that there is a majority 2A on the county board, you will see a difference in your daily life, more so than just about any race you can think of, because you have certainly any race that you have control over. You can actually have an effect on that race. You can actually have an effect on Jim Miller running for re-election. You can actually have an effect on Joel Anderson, who's running on county board. So please be involved. How do you get involved? We'll go to our volunteer page. One of the big things that we're going to be doing is getting our voter guide distributed through the gun shops via tabletops. Well, we're already adding them, but basically August, September, October. Those are the 3 important months. August, September, and October. We want 3 or 4 gun shops or tabletops at gun shops every Saturday at least, and then some. So starting early August, start looking, hey, how can I help? Where can I sign up? Which tabletop needs a person?
Volunteer.
And show up, and you are absolutely making a difference. Whereas just watching things happen at a federal level, you're not making any difference at all.
He can do it.
Who, what?
This commercial.
Yeah.
He's sitting right there.
There you go. Have
the self-defense event happens in seconds. From the time it takes to listen to this commercial, your life could change forever. But I pray you're never forced to shoot in self-defense. But if you must, then you must be ready, and that's why the USCCA exists. Because every responsible armed American should have the training and education to navigate a self-defense situation. And should you ever need it, the 24/7 critical response team is right there for you. Get signed up with our friends, Adam Bendas. Give him a call today, 619-318-6803. That's 619-318-6803. Please wait till 6 o'clock. Signing up is super easy. Get the education, protection you need. Enjoy the peace of mind if you're ever in a self-defense incident. Remember, be proactive, not reactive. Call Adam at 6 p.m. today, 619-318-6803.
That was Oscar-worthy, Dave.
I thought so. I was very good. Well, I'm very adamant about this.
I got to tell you, I called them it truly is a 24/7 line. Mm-hmm. I called them at like 11 o'clock last night. It was not an emergency. I just needed to update my credit card info, but they picked right up.
Oh, yeah. I
was very impressed.
They seen your picture.
Yeah.
They knew it was you.
And they were super nice. At 11 o'clock. 11 o'clock on a Saturday night. I was
and it was somebody in the U.S.?
100%. Not only somebody in the U.S., I'm clearly somebody in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Because they had
Was it Wisconsin?
They had a little bit of a...
Usually now they, with COVID and everything, though, they do have people all kind of over the country that work remotely that can take those customer service calls. Mm-hmm. Critical response is Wisconsin. That's always Wisconsin.
Gotcha.
But but more than likely, you had somebody. Most people are in Wisconsin.
Well, I asked I said, "Can you update my credit card information?" She said, "You betcha." I'm like, "All right, that's."
Well, you're in Wisconsin there.
She's like, betcha. Yeah, she's right there. Okay, subscribe and win. Subscribe to our email list and win some swag. This week's winner is 925 Dirt Rider. We actually don't have their name. We just have their email. So if you know what 925 Dirt Rider is and means, you win. All you got to do is email prizes@gunownersradio.com and to claim your T-shirt or hat. And if you want a T-shirt, let us know what size. That will almost guarantee success if you let us know what size, rather than us just sending some random
small.
Yeah.
Because we have a lot of
Unless you want like a half shirt. Okay, cool. Well, let's see. Top of the hour announcement. So if you missed our symposium talks from the last gun show, which, by the way, I hear went excellently. Mm-hmm. How did the symposium go, Adam?
Symposiums were great.
Yeah. Rich did a good job. I couldn't believe he got Adam, or that he his name just fell out of my head. From Adam Kraut. Yeah, Adam Kraut. You confused me. I'm looking at a guy named Adam, trying to think of a guy named Adam. Adam Kraut from Second Amendment Foundation. I couldn't believe he got him to come all the way out and talk. I thought that was really amazing. I was upset that we missed that, which, by the way, I don't know if you know this, but, Second Amendment Foundation, their big event is in September here in San Diego. Mm-hmm. They have that every year. I think it's like the 50th or something. They have that every year, and it's free. It's totally free. You get to go see a bunch of speakers, attorneys, and activists, and all kinds of Second Amendment leaders, people you see on YouTube, that sort of thing. So definitely check that out. I'm gonna be a speaker. I get to talk. How about
Nice.
that? I think I'm an usher. So I think that's your seat's right this way. Oh wow, well done, Mike.
Worth the price of admission.
Ouch. All right. If you missed, where were we talking about? If you missed out on the symposium talks from the last gun show, the video recordings are starting to be published. Make sure you don't miss out on the great talks by subscribing to Gun Owners newsletter, Gun Owners Radio. gunownersradio.com/subscribe. So go to our newsletter and you won't miss out on all these really cool talks because they're editing those down and putting them up so you can hear what everyone talked about. Matthias Quallenberg is going to he's the next one up. We just published a talk from him. He's going to talk about how to navigate interactions with police as a CCW holder, which I think is extremely important. I get a lot of those questions. Mm-hmm.
Almost every CCW class, it's firsthand that goes up. What happens when you get pulled over? It's definitely every time.
And they all want to know, do you have to disclose? Mm-hmm. What do you tell them? What do you tell them?
Recommend yes.
Yeah. Best practice.
Yeah, best practice. Let them know.
Yeah. Legally, don't have to.
In California.
In California, legally don't have to, but best practices. Which, by the way, I mean, if they've done any kind of looking, they know. It's on their system in California. If you look it up, if they run your whatever, it pops up that you have a CCW. So disclose.
Yeah, I mean, it depends a little bit on what they run. They don't
Correct.
always do that deeper
Yeah.
check right off the bat.
They generally just run the wants and warrants for the most part, which won't show it.
Correct.
But yeah, I recommend. Well, the other factor too, like we let people know as well. Like if you do ever travel, just to kind of make it a practice, because there are states where it is the law.
I didn't know that.
Just do it all the same way, and you're in better shape.
I know somebody told me a while ago that in Utah, the attitude, and they told me this back before they were issuing in California. In fact, it was right on the tail of, there was a big case, I don't know, like 10 years ago. There was a video running all over the place where a CHP officer pulled somebody over and, they said, hey, I got a permit. And they took the guy out, sat him on the sidewalk in cuffs for a speeding ticket just because he had a CCW.
Yeah, I've heard from working with so many classes, meeting so many people, I have heard stories that run the whole spectrum of interactions. Yeah. Some of them cops that are like, cool, have a good day, to exactly what you just described. Very depends on the cop.
Well, and the feedback, this was from a CCW instructor who from Utah. And they said that the general attitude by law enforcement in Utah, because Utah was one of the states that was just, issuing CCWs, as much as they could. But their attitude was, look, if this person has a CCW, then there's a picture and and fingerprints on file somewhere. They've gone through a background check. They're statistically a part of a group that commits fewer crimes. So they were like, it was more welcoming. It wasn't like, it was a less dangerous stop, which is true.
Right.
Which is true.
The ones that we have heard more about, good example, yesterday I was working with John Russo up at North County Shooting Center.
Yep, good dude.
Awesome dude, one of the best instructors anywhere. And he's 30 years law enforcement, and he was kind of describing that they've had some weird training things where newer officers are being trained and they're doing scenarios where like younger inexperienced officers, like say that haven't really been around guns much, have it, kind of a different reaction where it's not as common kind of thing here. So that's why I said it runs all over the place like that.
Well, it has. People, our shooting socials. We put together our shooting socials because I found that the horrible gun laws in San Diego had wiped out an entire generation of gun ownership. People were making it to 30, 40, 50 years old, having never touched a gun before. Yeah. And I'm running around saying, hey, vote for the Second Amendment. And I'm realizing, there are a bunch of people out there that have never even touched a gun before. So culturally it was different. So yeah, if you grew up and guns are exotic, well, the anti-gunners have done their job. They've made them scary. So I can imagine that cops would be, that would make them nervous. It's something we're trying. We haven't it's kind of been, it's not our number one priority yet, but we're kind of working it towards the top. And there's at least one volunteer who's working this, but I would like very much to get a message to law enforcement in an official manner, so that they're actually telling their officers, hey, here's the deal on CCW holders. They're the good guys, not,
Right.
So anyway, more talks are coming from Second Amendment attorney Gary Gibson, who is awesome, Escondido Mayor Dane White, comedian and actor Mark Christopher Lawrence, Desi Bergman talking about Not Me SD, Women for Gun Rights, California Director Kimberly Southwell, and the Second Amendment Foundation Adam Kraut that we were just talking about. So go to gunownersradio.com/subscribe. And of course, check out our YouTube channel and see some of the very interesting talks we have. And then next, we're going to really talk a lot more. Adam, we're going to talk about USCCA. You guys have some really cool news, and I want to touch on that and really go after it.
Sounds good.
Not Me is for women, by women, and is designed to help women with training, purchasing a gun, and getting a concealed carry permit. And guess what? It's free. If you're a woman or you know a woman who needs help, have her sign up and we'll get her all the help she needs. Go to notmesd.org, notmesd.org, and it is free.
All right, Adam from USCCA, how are you, my friend?
Doing well.
So for those who live under a rock, why don't you give them, what is USCCA?
U.S. Concealed Carry Association. First and foremost, national training organization. So that's big part of what the organization does. Like Dave said earlier, the training and education portion of it, and also self-defense liability insurance portion.
But
of it.
it's kind of training first and insurance second.
Yeah, we want people to be as trained and educated as possible. Not just concealed carry, whether it's just owning a gun or self-defense. Period. That part's important.
And the insurance just isn't gun related.
Not at all.
If you thump somebody with a baseball bat,
Coverage, any self-defense type of incident.
Exactly.
Whether it's a firearm or use your imagination. I've heard of everything from pepper spray to we had a knife incident here in
how
town.
about kicking somebody's butt?
If you can, go for it.
Defensively.
But I'm just saying,
Self-defense.
Defensively.
self-defense. Well,
Sure.
yeah, of course.
It's got to be
All self-defense.
Do you have to get beat?
I don't know what that would even look like.
Well, you wouldn't. No. Alicia would.
I can't even imagine that.
Oh, Alicia.
Oh, Alicia does that.
Uh-oh. Leave your pocket knife
The
alone.
beating.
Leave
But
it alone.
I mean, some of the background though, kind of came about with that stuff was, people that were legally defending themselves and then getting kind of screwed by, the justice system and civil lawsuits and that kind of thing. So it's like, why don't we do something to have people's back that are in that situation?
Did you originally start out just gun incidents and then expand it to all self-defense?
It's kind of always been all self-defense,
Okay.
really.
Right.
Yeah.
Because that's important to know because
Yeah.
I have to say when people ask me about it,
Right.
that's the first thing they think of is, I have to be in a gun defense incident?
Right. Or
No,
people
no.
think you have to have a CCW,
Right.
which is not the case either.
So, that's another.
Yeah.
Well, and they started off publishing. You guys were, a magazine first, which was the educational part.
Which still exists.
Yeah.
Still a benefit of the membership.
And
Concealed Carry Magazine.
then turned into so much more.
Should have Sam the gunman write for him.
There you go.
About 830,000 members now.
Wow.
Wow, that's awesome.
So you guys are there's a couple of different companies, organizations that do this, but you guys are by far the biggest.
Biggest and kind of the original, too.
Right.
Yeah. 21 years now.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
I was 21 years.
You've been with him 21 years.
I've been almost 4, but
I'm
the company's been
impressed.
about 21 years.
You look good for 21 years.
Thank you.
So you guys had some big changes, a couple of big announcements,
Sure.
and I wanted to really touch on all those and talk about them thoroughly. So,
Yeah.
which one do you want to talk about first?
So some of the we can talk about some of the stuff with regards to like the policy and things like that. Not to get too into the weeds with it, but it's to be honest, kind of one of those things where when you become kind of the number one person or organization or whatever, people want to bring you down.
Everybody takes a shot at you.
Exactly. So doing a lot of that stuff, disrupting the industry a little bit with the way the organization is doing things and helping the partnerships and all that kind of thing, it started to bring, let's call it haters, if you will. So basically, a lot of them, totally honest, companies that are trying to sell their own product by trashing USCCA.
Right.
A lot of misinformation, a lot of false information, making YouTube videos, all that kind of stuff, right? Spreading stuff about the policy and if you do this, they're not going to cover you and da 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 da. And so I'll kind of lead with what I tell people when I'm in person, especially with people. People bring that up. Oh, I saw this guy on YouTube say this. Well, my thing getting into it, working for him now almost 4 years, seeing the character for one of the organization, but then also I've gotten to be friends and met a lot of attorneys across the country, literally across the country. And the cool thing, it's what makes us take pride in it. Every attorney was like, every time I've ever gotten a call from USCCA, they're helping the member out right away, hands down, no questions asked, good to go. I mean, yeah, obviously if you go out there and you're robbing 7-Eleven or something, you're going to have some issues getting coverage, right? But that's where I look. I don't care about the guy on YouTube. This is where in the real world, Gary's a good example. When he got his first case here locally, that was a USCCA member. He's like, oh my God, easiest thing in the world. I talked to him right away, paid me right away, went to work on the case, good to go. So anyway, to get to that.
The attorneys I've talked to about USCCA, nothing but good things.
Yeah.
Well, and this is real world experience. They've
that's
actually
the thing.
defended people, and USCCA took care of them from soup to
Well,
nuts.
and if you were not doing the right thing,
Right.
according to the YouTube guy, would you have any lawyers working with you?
Right.
No, they wouldn't. It wouldn't touch you with a 10-foot pole.
Right.
But when you get accolades, just as Mike mentioned, you almost don't even need to defend it. Just keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah. So, I mean, but there's in a way, people do listen to some of that stuff. So, they had to go, they went back and they kind of made it more clear, added some things in the policy and changed some language. Like, look, this is black and white. You claim self-defense, you're covered. We have your back, all that kind of stuff, just to kind of put people at ease that were concerned about it. There are people that were concerned. The funny thing too, people bring up like, oh my God, they're bleeding members. And all. No, they're 830,000 members. That's not the case. Most people, when you actually research, can find the truth, right? But so that was the first thing, kind of changing some of the language to put,
to clarify that, hey, look,
clarify
if you're a member and if you're in a self-defense situation, you're getting covered.
Yeah, putting people at ease a little bit with that stuff.
Yeah, kind of end discussion.
Right. Like I said, which is already the case. California, like you got a bunch of good. I tell people too in classes, Southern California, we have some amazing attorneys. A lot that I've met. Gary, obviously, a great one too is like Steve Lieberman, if you guys know him in Orange County.
Sure. Artemis.
Yeah, Artemis Defense. He even put out a blog about that when some of this stuff came out. He's like, look, I'm affiliated in the way that I make videos on YouTube because it helps me and I promote it, but I've taken, he said, probably 30 cases from USCCA. Never had any issues with anything. And that's what I tell people, I don't really care what the guy on YouTube says. This is the real world. This is, how it goes. But they wanted to, kind of adjust it because people also need to realize with a lot of this stuff, with the policies and insurance and all that, you have to have certain things in place for it to even be available in the U.S. It's got to be legal or else the whole thing doesn't exist. And then what good does that do? Right. But the goal was kind of clarifying, like you said, some of that stuff, putting people at ease. So that was kind of the first portion of it, and then we can talk about some of the updates to coverage and things.
Yeah, and just to put I have no concerns with USCCA and their coverage. I don't know an attorney that has any concerns with USCCA and their coverage who's worked with USCCA. I think they're great. I regularly recommend them, and I have no reason. I mean, your customer service has been exemplary. I think that just you personally, in all honesty, it puts you head and shoulders above a lot of your competition because it's not just some 800 number. Off in the distance somewhere, you come to the meetings, you show up at the events, you're in the community. And I think that's huge. I think that's a huge advantage that USCCA has. So,
yeah, I mean, and to add to that real quick, personally, I wouldn't sell it if that wasn't the case. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I'm not a politician,
I met you at a gun range. Long before USCCA, I met you at a gun range.
Yep.
So,
working as an RSO.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
So what's all right. So clarified that. There was another couple of announcements or so that the USCCA came out with that I wanted to talk about.
Yeah. So a few updates to the coverage that exists for members. So the cool thing too is all this stuff goes into effect, and this isn't really something new with the process. USCCA literally every year tries to add and figure stuff out and add new benefits and things like that. So it's not a new thing. But upgrading, for instance, the first one, the amount for bail went to up to $2.5 million bail.
Jeez.
From $1 million. Part of the reason is also sort of taking data from real stuff. You know, they look at real things. You know, some of these cases kind of went above that. You know, so let's raise that up. So $2.5 million bail now. That's a big one. The other stuff still does exist. You know, the unlimited defense, criminal, civil, $2 million for the civil liability. That's still there, obviously. And then so some of the other points that were added on was there's a $10,000 extra benefit, which is basically to help somebody if, say, they needed some time off or something, they had to miss work after an incident because of stress or whatever. And that's in addition to even there's up to a $750 per day benefit that goes in if you have to miss work or business to go to court or something like that. So supplementing your income for that kind of thing. So that's one. There's another new addition, $5,000, which is basically to help pay an attorney to expunge and seal records from an incident, things like that. And then to what you guys are already talking about, the big one that we've been pushing for a long time, they were able to get done, is $15,000 benefit to hire an attorney if you ever are in a GVRO or red flag or anything like that.
That's huge.
It's huge.
I get calls fairly regularly about GVROs. And in Southern California, particularly in San Diego.
For people that don't know, what is a GVRO?
It is a gun violence restraining order, and it just becomes standard operating procedure. Anytime anything happens, any kind of interaction with police, and there is any kind of firearm ownership involved, it is pretty much become standard operating procedure. So, I mean, we just had a case where a guy was road raged. He wasn't the road rager. He was road raged against.
And that was a self-defense incident, too.
There was a self-defense incident, but he got arrested, and they gun violence restraining ordered him. They GVRO'd him. Even though it's completely – the judge threw it out and said it was absolutely ridiculous, but that didn't mean he still had to spend big money on it. Right. And he was not a USCCA member. I think he is now. But
I hope so.
He was not at the time. But,
and not only the money that's spent on the defense or the process of getting that removed, but then the fallout of ownership after.
Which there was, yeah. And we're actually going to have that dude and talk. But anyway, gun violence restraining orders, they're pretty much standard operating procedure in San Diego and in California. We're working on it, but it's here, man. It's here, and I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon. So $15,000 to help pay an attorney.
One thing cool about that benefit too is that is actually can be a standalone benefit. It doesn't have to be from a self-defense incident. It could just be an issue. You know, I've heard weird ones. You know, neighbors or spouses or whatever. So that is actually potentially a standalone benefit, not necessarily just from a self-defense incident.
So if the only thing that happens is a gun violence restraining order and you have USCCA, boom, you're covered.
Call up and get that help.
Awesome.
And a little praise your way. A representative has a lot to do by representing the company. And for what you do probably has a lot to do with what Mike is saying and all these other lawyers are saying. So, little hats off to you. Right over.
There you go. Yeah. Nice.
We're not giving you any money. We're just No way, Jose. She's being nasty again, Mike.
What?
She's being nasty.
Blue hair over there?
Oh, blue hair. Hey, do you belong to an association, maybe a club or organization that is wrestling with their marketing? Well, you know, most organizations waste a lot of money and time trying to do the marketing themselves. It's really tough to manage. But, you know, especially if you're doing websites, social media, e-commerce, email, and the list goes on. Well, leave that frustration behind with Sage Tree's fractional marketing department services. They take care of everything: planning, development, advertising, and a whole lot more. Getting started is real easy. Visit sagetree.com. Click on the Schedule an Appointment button. That's right, sagetree.com, and click on the Schedule a Call button now.
Well, awesome. We're talking to Adam from USCCA. He's a local San Diegan.
Yes, sir.
And he's been working for USCCA for 4 years. And USCCA just announced, like you said, they do fairly often some big improvements to their or clarifications and improvements to their coverage, which is fantastic news. And you guys, again, really appreciate how much you guys support the community and how much you support building the community. And of course, your coverage has been great. It's been wonderful. I've heard nothing but good things, had nothing but good experiences from those in the know. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah, that's just that's. I mean, same thing for me. Out, like I said before, out in the real world, everybody I've ever met, whether it's members that have had an issue or attorneys that have handled cases, that's what you hear from people that actually have dealt with it, or even instructors. Everybody that we work with that actually works with the organization or has something like that. Yeah, that's what you hear.
Well, that's cool, man. Very cool. And you guys were supporters of the last couple of gun shows.
Yeah.
And I heard things. I didn't attend. I was out of town, but I heard things went swimmingly at the last one.
Yeah, the symposium stuff to me is the coolest thing. With the symposiums, and then Aaron and Mike Pettingill doing the little training classes and everything. They're awesome, great classes and everything. But hearing having Gary out there too doing some talks. Where again you're hearing from an attorney that has handled these cases and things like that. That's always kind of
won them.
Yeah,
and won
all of them.
Dude's like a pit bull.
When you hear, how stuff really goes down, and I think that's some of the best information you're ever going to get, is hearing real world stuff like that.
So when all this stuff came down, it's probably a little too quick with the Rahimi case. It's just a couple days old, but memos coming down. Are they talking about it at USCCA? Do they have any thoughts, or you know what I mean? Is there any feedback?
They did actually. I believe they put out a statement, and everything on that as well. Yeah. So they put stuff out if you follow through the website and the emails and everything. Absolutely.
And talked about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, good.
Absolutely.
Very, very good. Awesome. What do you think? What do you think the future is? What would you like to see? How would you like to see USCCA? With the gun owning community in San Diego, like what would you like the next 12 months to look like, or what are you looking forward to? Or
I think one thing, kind of so what we were talking about with Dave earlier, more people that'll kind of see that we don't just do concealed carry,
right?
The home defense kind of thing. Like, an example, that is a real thing nowadays. Yeah, I was just recently working with an instructor with kind of a private venue in Carlsbad, La Costa area, and the immigration stuff and the crime and everything. And this was in June. No, during June. May was when we did this. And he was telling me, I don't know since then, but he was like, man, there's been like 37 burglaries and or robberies in this area in the last few months. And that's crazy.
Well, you know what it is? Okay, so when you look at a bad neighborhood, like, I don't live in a bad neighborhood. And what they're talking about is like a high crime neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And the people in a high crime neighborhood who have crime committed against them tend to be criminals. It tends to be criminals committing criminals or criminal acts against criminals. In nice neighborhoods, that's where criminals go to rob, that break in.
That's where all the good stuff is.
It's all the good stuff is, right. It's all the valuable stuff. So the idea that, hey, I don't go to bad neighborhoods, therefore I don't need a CCW, or I don't go to bad neighborhoods, therefore I'm safe or whatever. I think that it's a complete and total misunderstanding of the facts and numbers and statistics.
Yeah, and that's where I think, with the membership too, like I said, besides the insurance portion of it, the education and training part, more people should utilize that to mitigate that stuff in the first place, because there's a lot that you could do to prevent that kind of stuff.
I think a lot of people just think of you guys as insurance. And
right.
I don't think that there's enough out there, people being sharing about the training aspect.
Oh, you guys really do there's a lot of information that comes from USCCA.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, even like I said, the people get a misconception because it is U.S. Concealed Carry Association that it's just about CCWs and concealed carry, or it's just concealed carry insurance, which that's not even the case either. So that's where I think something like that. Some new kind of systems even in place as well for, let's say like groups, even more of an ability to, like, even say like a company wanted to have memberships for their employees. We have more systems in place like that to do that kind of thing. So I think that's kind of one of the goals is sort of branching out from the just concealed carry necessarily. More people could take advantage of it, and they should.
Well, and people ask me a lot, well, should I get the coverage before or after I get a CCW or whatever? I tell people my honest opinion is it's always a good idea. But if you have a CCW and you don't have it, you're crazy.
Yeah, especially with a CCW.
Yeah, I mean, it's always a good idea to be able to defend, in some kind of, self-defense situation. But if you're walking around with lethal force and a CCW in your wallet and you don't have this type of coverage, I think totally crazy, totally insane.
Well, I mean, the other factor especially with CCWs, because I mean, we've talked about it even on this show before. some of the cases that were there's not even a shot fired.
Yeah.
The gun is just literally shown or pulled, and now you have a whole ordeal.
Well, there was a the New York Times just had this interview on their blog. It was a journalist who covers a lot of Second Amendment stuff, and he was questioning a researcher, like an academic researcher. And the researcher said that in their survey that it was like 1.7 million times a year or something like that, somebody's involved in a self-defense situation. But then this guy said, but, it was kind of questionable what he was counting. I mean, sometimes, it wasn't somebody using a gun. They just had a gun or someone just showing a gun or whatever. Yeah, man, that counts.
That's still self-defense.
If you're being attacked and all you have to do is brandish, or all you have to do is even say, hey, look, I got a gun, leave me alone, I don't want any trouble, and that ends the attack.
That's a good outcome.
Yeah, put it up on the scoreboard, man.
Yeah.
So, but the idea, and then by the way, the New York Times journalist that was interviewing him was like faking this, like, oh my, being all dramatic. I was like, oh my God. But so many, in fact, the vast majority of defensive gun use in the United States, there's no shot fired.
Yeah.
There's no shot fired. So it's extremely important. But I got to tell you, even if there's no shot fired, and this case with the road rage case, there was no shot fired.
Right.
Even if there's no shot fired, you could get arrested.
Yep.
You could lose your gun. You could need an attorney. And the last thing you want is, an attorney who, like an estate attorney or something, like an attorney who isn't specializing in this.
Yeah, you want someone who knows what they're doing with this.
Yeah, so.
Well, I mean, even home defense, there's that case that was in the news just recently in Oakland. 77-year-old guy that had two intruders bust into his house with weapons, and he shot one and I think held the other one, and then he got arrested. 77-year-old dude getting taken to jail.
Jeez.
From his own house.
For defending himself.
Yeah.
Seems fair.
That's not even a CCW involved incident. That's just a great example of just a
What happened to
normal
Homie's
American.
Castle?
It is.
What happened to that?
It's still around. You have 3 castles while your taxes are so high.
I don't even see the last two.
Car and work.
I got too many cars.
An MR2, a used MR2 is not a castle, by the way, Dave.
That's true. It's a up tent.
I don't make the rules.
I do have 18 cars. I guess that's lots of little castles. Well, all we can say is good that you're around.
That's right. So you've been watching things from the get-go. I remember you from the very beginning of San Diego County Gun Owners. You and I met like 8 years ago.
Yeah.
Like that. So you've
Where's
seen
the get-go?
The get-go is the very beginning, sir.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's the get-go. Is that a weird one too?
No.
Is get-go a weird? Have you never heard get-go?
Hey, Brendan, is get-go a weird one? He's not listening.
He's not there.
I think it's just an old one.
Yeah, well, that's Brendan and I. We've been doing this a lot lately.
The cliches and sayings or whatever.
Squeeze the nickel, make the Indian ride the buffalo.
Yeah, that's right.
That's how.
Anyway, okay, you've been around from the beginning.
Much better.
What do you think about the state of affairs when it comes to Second Amendment? What do you think about what have you seen, and what are your thoughts on how things have progressed?
Is it getting better or is it getting worse?
I think I would say better. I mean, obviously the CCW stuff is great. The sheriff's actually issuing CCWs. It's to kind of use USCCA as an example too. I think the education and training portion of it is a much better approach with that too, to get more people on board.
Yeah.
And I see it also positive from the other side too, where people are starting to kind of see that, man, there is a lot of bad people out there, and the crime and all that kind of stuff, and more people are starting to kind of think, you know what, maybe I should learn to protect myself. I've been personally even hit up by people who were not necessarily into that, like, hey, you know what, thinking about getting a gun now,
right?
Because they see a lot of that stuff, and that's not the best, I guess, way. Seeing all the crime and bad stuff, but I think
some dude standing there in his yoga pants and his frappe and his man bun and be like, hey, I'm thinking about getting a gun now, like that.
Maybe not that extreme. I don't know if we'll ever get those dudes, but
that's the kind of people he hangs out with.
Well, I went to Starbucks the other day and ordered a glass of milk.
Just a glass of milk?
I wanted milk.
Did he throw you
Why
out?
don't you just go to 7-Eleven or something?
Because I was right next to a Starbucks, and I was like, you know what? So I went in and ordered a glass of milk, and he asked me if I wanted ice in it.
Oh.
I was going to smack the guy.
I like ice in my milk.
Ah,
Well, I told you I went.
you have blue in your hair too.
Hey, I went to Starbucks
Yeah.
and I said I'd like a black cup of coffee.
Yeah,
He said McDonald's is right down the street. Literally. Sent me to
seriously.
McDonald's. And I haven't been back since.
Don't take it personal.
See, I take it personal when I say I want a small, and they're like, "Oh, we don't have that, but we have tall, grande." And I'm like, "Shut up, shut up."
Hold
You know
on a
that
second.
one.
What was that the thing that you said?
If I said from the get-go, do you know what that means?
Yes, I do, of course.
That's one you knew?
Yeah, I knew that one for sure.
From the get-go.
I'm
Yeah.
impressed. All right, let's take a quick break. Why? Because it's Gun Owners Radio. And Sam the Gunman's coming up. Hey, have you been keeping your gun clean and lubricated the way you should? Well, if you've been procrastinating because cleaning your gun with traditional products is smelly and pain in the you-know-what, then you should try Seal One.
Try it.
Seal One is an all-in-one product that cleans, lubricates, and protects your firearm. Clean your guns faster, easier, and safer with Seal One. No more smelling like gas. Enjoy the confidence and peace of mind knowing your guns are protected with the best. So buy some now at seal1.com.
That's right. Use Seal One. Stop using that Haktui.
That's
Seal
now that's what Haktui is.
I cannot believe you used that line on the air. Oh my gosh!
Is that one of the ones you can't say?
No more Haktui. Use the Seal
fine.
One.
It's
Michael.
fine to say it out of context, but in the context, we all know what that is about.
What is it? We don't know.
I
what it is.
would argue she used it out of context.
Well, okay. I will play for you after this show is done.
Okay. Well, let's stop now.
Haktui's been around for forever.
You do it all the time.
Yeah.
When you hurl.
Do a little Haktui.
Stop
Louis.
it! No,
Yeah.
it's terrible.
Same thing as a lunger.
This is the worst radio.
You know what a lunger is?
Yeah. Or a
Sounds
Rocky
It's a
Mountain
Haktui.
or a
Sounds
Rocky
dirty.
Mountain oyster.
Or a Rocky Mountain. I ate one of those once.
No, don't do that.
no.
You didn't.
Didn't even know what it was.
A little
At Croce's.
Haktui on that Rocky Mountain oyster.
At Croce's of all places.
All right, here we go. Croce's? I remember Croce's.
Yeah, and I go, what is this?
was a long
And she
time
told
ago.
me. I Haktu'd.
I only know Jim Croce. That's it. So.
Well,
That's
I did
who that
too,
was
but
named after.
Named
Yeah,
after.
his wife ran the restaurant downtown.
That makes
All right,
sense.
let's
His
get
son used to play there, AJ Croce.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Did you play with him?
No. All right, here we go.
Here we go.
All right, time for everybody's favorite segment, Stump My Nephew with Sam the Gunman. We found out years ago he's really good at gun trivia. So now if you write in and we use your question, we'll send you a hat or a shirt. And if you stump my nephew, then you get free tickets to Gun Prom. Gun Prom is, of course, October 16th. At the Omni, La Costa Omni. Check out gunprom.com for more info. Or think of a really good question, send it in, we'll use it. You stump Sam and you'll get free tickets. But very special thanks to Seal One. In all seriousness, please buy a bottle of Seal One and check it out. It's extremely, extremely good and effective. And Seal One is extremely good to Gun Owners Radio and gun owners in San Diego in general. So, Sam, you there?
Yeah, that sure was one of the introductions of all time.
You're welcome. All right, my friend, are you ready for the question?
I don't know. I hope so.
I think.
How would you define Haktui?
All right, here you go. Why don't we let Adam?
Sure.
Yeah, let Adam.
There you go, Adam.
Go
All
ahead. Adam.
right. So Tim from Oceanside asks, which firearm designed in the U.S. became famous for its use by British forces in World War I and II, featuring a distinctive top-mounted pan magazine and a unique barrel cooling shroud?
Oh, shroud, this thing which goes up.
I think it also does have a shoulder thing that goes up.
Yeah,
now that you
shoulder thing
mention
that
it.
goes up. Yeah.
Tim from Oceanside, thanks very much for writing in, and Adam, thanks for reading the question. The firearm to which Tim refers is the Lewis light machine gun, the famous Belgian rattlesnake, because it was used in the Low Countries in World War I extensively. The Lewis light machine gun features a top-mounted pan-style magazine. The rounds travel in sort of a spiral pattern to reach the chamber they enter from the top. And it was reputed to be very accurate and reliable. It was well liked at the time. The mechanics can be a little bit finicky compared to some of its modern counterparts, but the shroud that's part of the question covers an aluminum cooling fin stack. There's actually a giant heat sink under that shroud. If you look at a Lewis gun, it looks like a receiver and a stock and a pistol grip, and then just a giant tube, like a leaf blower. It looks like a leaf blower with a stack of records on top of it, and that's the Pan magazine.
You're right.
And there's a giant aluminum heat
Dave's
sink
got a
under
picture of it. Looks just like that.
That's exactly.
Or like it almost looks like a potato can.
What'd they shoot out of it?
Potatoes.
Potatoes?
They did not shoot potatoes, though there was the Colt Browning M1895 was referred to as the potato digger, and that was contemporary. But the British military used a lot of Lewis guns chambered in .303. The U.S. military kind of turned its nose at the Lewis gun because the inventor, Isaac Newton Lewis, had like a personal beef with some general in Army ordnance, and this ordnance guy just did not like Lewis, and so did everything he could to torpedo the adoption of the Lewis gun in 30-06 for U.S. forces.
Jeez. Well, you pretty much nailed it. The Lewis gun, invented by U.S. Army Colonel Isaac Newton Lewis in 1911, was a light machine gun widely used by British and Commonwealth forces during both World Wars. Its unique design included a top-mounted Pan magazine, which allowed for a compact and mobile setup. The Lewis served to the end of the Korean War. It was widely used as an aircraft machine gun during both World Wars, almost always with the cooling shroud removed, as airflow during flight offered sufficient cooling. So you nailed it. Correct. That's awesome, man. Very, very good job. Hey, I saw. How familiar are you with a Mauser?
I own one.
Okay. So I saw a guy talking about a Mauser. This is a total impromptu off the cuff here.
I got one for you too.
Yeah? Let's see what we can do here.
Off topic.
Oh, actually, okay, real quick. But
I
then
have a question.
what?
It might be the same thing you're thinking.
I don't.
It's not, okay, here it is. So a
One at a
Mauser.
time, please.
So it's got a stripper clip, right?
Mauser rifles most of them feed from a stripper clip. The early ones did not, but the one, when people talk about a Mauser rifle, typically they
has a
mean
stripper
a
clip.
96 or a 98 pattern. They load from stripper clips.
After you push the ammo down into the magazine,
It pops out.
how does it pop out?
Magic.
It's not magic.
Sorcery.
When you push the bolt forward, it pops out.
Bingo.
I guess the way
So-
the clip guide is machined, there must be an angle to it because it pops right out, unlike in a Mosin where you have to pull it out.
That's true. There's actually two. There's a little button you push, and that's apparently the wrong way to do it. You're supposed to just send the bolt home, and boom, it pops right out.
Yeah.
So there you
Paul
go.
Mauser was just that good.
You know your Mausers. Okay, you know what, though? Before we get too far into the show, I don't think Sam's got a whole thing he does, a whole game he does,
Yes.
where he guesses what you carry by the car you drive.
That was going to be my question.
Is that going to be your
was it.
question?
That's what I had.
All right. You ready, Sam?
By what I drive?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What'd you drive
I
here
don't
today?
know. This is it's kind of a gimmick.
It's our new favorite thing,
Fine.
Sam.
Let's
Come
see.
on.
Let's see how it goes.
All right.
I drive a F-150.
Oh.
So what's he carry?
What year's your F-150?
2020.
Oh, late.
What color is it?
Like a sort of a dark red, like burgundy almost.
What did you drive before this F-150?
A blue Ford Ranger.
What year?
Oh man, 07.
So you liked, I'm guessing you liked the Ford Ranger, you like small trucks, but Americans aren't allowed to buy small trucks anymore. So you had to move to the F-150.
Needed more space
I'm-
for work purposes too.
I'd guess a
Okay,
44
fair
Magnum.
enough.
That's what I.
I'm-
All right, no, go ahead.
You know, F-150, like new F-150 is kind of giving me P320 vibes, but that not strongly. So many F-150s are out there that it's hard to place it.
Nah,
Come on, is that what you got? Is that your final?
Is that final guess?
I want to say a P320, but I don't even know if that's on the roster. I don't know what's on the roster.
Not quite. Usually ranges typically back and forth between Glock 19 and P365.
Glock
Okay.
19 and 365. You know what's funny
Two
is
very different guns.
Joe drives an F-150 and he carries a Glock 19 too. How about that?
So real quick, I had a random fun thing,
right.
so I don't forget.
All right.
Since you brought up
Go
credit,
ahead.
my dad retired now. He's an executive chef, like I said, retired now, but he was a guest chef at Croce's in the 80s.
Oh,
so
cool.
random fun fact for
There you
you.
go.
Really?
I remember I went down there the last week. It was open. It was a really cool little spot. All right. Well, I guess the guess what he carries from what they drive thing, it might not be the best.
I like it.
We might be. You like it?
I like it. I think it needs to
What
stay.
what about like a Prius? What if you drove a Prius? What would
Yeah. CZ.
CZ?
What would you carry if someone drove
No,
a?
that
A
doesn't give
Berna?
enough credit to CZ owners.
I don't know. What if someone? Well,
Squirt gun?
We'll ask again. We'll
It's
continue.
harder
This.
for really common cars because such a wide swath of people, drive that you never really know.
And it's actually, you'd think it'd be easier in California because we can't get that many guns, but it's actually harder because he might be a SIG guy, but if that's not on the roster, then he's just going to get whatever he can. Anyway, yeah, I like it. It's a keeper.
Do you know the noisy cricket from Men in Black?
Yes.
That would be a Fiat right there. Definitely.
Everybody's
smart
getting
car.
into the act.
All right, there you go. Hawk Tui.
Hawk to
All right, my friend. Good job. Excellent work. We will talk to you next week. Awesome job.
Hey, thanks for having me on. As always, thanks everyone for listening. I don't know why you keep listening, but apparently people like this segment, so there you go.
Yes, sir, they do. Trust me.
Thanks for watching this episode from Gun Owners Radio. If you're watching mainstream media, you're not getting the truth about guns and the Second Amendment. Gun Owners Radio is the easiest way to stay on top of the Second Amendment fight, the fight for your self-defense rights. You can watch our live stream on YouTube every Sunday from 4 to 6 p.m. California time, or if you're in San Diego, AM 1170, FM 96.1, The Answer. We're also available on your favorite podcast platform. Just do a search for Gun Owners Radio and you'll find our show. Don't forget to support our sponsors. Click on the links in the show notes and support the businesses that support your Second Amendment rights. Like and subscribe to help defend and restore the Second Amendment, not just in California, but across the country.